I would like to first welcome our audience who are joining us from all corners of the globe, from Armenia to Japan to United States, France, Russia, Lebanon, Israel, Argentina, and beyond. Hello, Baradez, Здравствуйте, Ahlan Bik, Konnichiwa, Guten Tag, Ni hao, Bonjour, Shalom, Hola, Ai, Namaste. And a huge thank you to you, Mr. President, for taking the time from your extremely difficult schedule and spending this hour with us to discuss COVID-19 challenges in Armenia and the entire planet, and how we are transitioning to a reality where we are forced to live with this nano-sized disruptor of human health, economic activities, interaction between people, and just general known to us harm. Mr. President, you have an incredibly eclectic background. First, the fact that you are a theoretical physicist and mathematician is extraordinary. Not very many heads of states claim such academic accolades, besides probably Angela Merkel, who is an honors graduate with a PhD in quantum chemistry. Second, you have successfully conquered a number of professional domains. Most people are lucky to get to achieve something of value in some vertical, but your road is simply stunning. Just to mention a few, in academia, you were a professor of physics in Armenia, then a researcher and a professor at the University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom. In international development, served as the chairman of Global Council on Energy Security at the World Economic Forum, presided over the House, over Eurasia House International. Your Excellency President Armend Sարգսյանը, it's really a great honor to have this virtual fireside dialogue with you. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Armin. I was listening to your quite a long introduction, and I was thinking probably the best thing in that introduction would be the last words. I think looking forward for new endeavors, problems, and achievements if they will occur. So the future life is more interesting than what we have achieved in our previous lives. So thank you again. I'm very happy to be here together with you and your audience. The topic is still there, coronavirus. That's why I would like to start with, if I may, with a small notion, addressing to everybody, internationally and also specifically Armenians in Armenia. In many countries, including in Armenia, the pressure on individuals or pressure on citizens is becoming less controlled, less tough. But please, dear friends, dear compatriots, whoever is watching me, the coronavirus has not disappeared. It's still there, it's still very dangerous. In Armenia, we are hearing every day more than 100 new individuals are getting infected by coronavirus. So it's very, very dangerous, especially for those who are your friends and family members, those who are vulnerable. Please be serious. And as this seriousness is not going to last, unfortunately, another week or two, it's going to be longer, but discipline, self-discipline, and well-organized groups, people, individuals, families, or nations will win this battle sooner rather than later.
Mr. President, we started speaking about the virus. I'm curious, how do you view how the world is handling COVID-19 and how Armenia as a country has fared in this?
Well, just even one question of yours is so wide and so complicated, because apparently just a simple virus has become a global pandemic and has become a global issue. It's not only just a medical issue or health issue, it's much more complex and much more complicated. And when I think about this, what is this coronavirus? Maybe strangely it reminds me something from our history as well, from global history. It takes me back many centuries back. This is early 12th century, and this is the battle This is the battle for Jerusalem. And why I'm taking this comparison? Because the whole world at those days was divided between Europe and Christianity fighting for Jerusalem, and the Arab world and Islam fighting for the same small city, which was Jerusalem. So Jerusalem was everywhere. Every royal family, every politics, every economic development, everything was connected with Jerusalem, and the same was happening in the Arab world and so on. So I think it was at 1187 when Jerusalem was taken over by the army of Salah ad-Din, who was the first sultan of Egypt and Syria. In fact, he was not Arab; he was Kurd, and the holy city was delivered to him after very long and very heavy fight and very long and very heavy negotiations by a gentleman whose name was Balian of Iblis. So I live with you and the historians to judge was Mr. Balian Armenian or not, but it's a historic fact that 2 years before that, the king, the famous king of Jerusalem, Baudouin IV, died very, very young, and this was a young man that in 1177, when he was 16, he defeated the same Salah ad-Din in a big battle, but unfortunately he died from leprosy. But I remember this story not because of Baudouin, that his mother was Armenian and the grandmother was Armenian, so there was a strong Armenian presence in that story. But the two words that happened at the end of the negotiation between Balian and Salah ad-Din, when Balian asked him, well, can you tell me what is for you this fight for Jerusalem? He told him nothing. After thousands of people were died, and the question was, what is that? What is this fight that we are fighting for? It was nothing. Just a fight for a small city. But then he turned back and said everything. So he said nothing and everything. So if I take, what is this coronavirus? Basically, it's nothing. It's another virus that we were, as humans, were facing for 2,000 years or more. Here and then in different forms, bacterial or viral of origin. But this one has become something enormous. There were more people dying from pandemics maybe in Middle Ages or before, but this one has become a global event. And the question is, why? Because this pandemic is very specific. Well, it's a specific pandemic, a specific virus, but it's a virus, so it's nothing. But the world has changed. The world has changed. So that if you take the virus in this new world that has changed, become globalized, interconnected, very fast, very interlinked with specific crowding, specific places, that huge cities or malls, and a huge number of people traveling worldwide, very fast world, crowded world. So it becomes everything. So it's the same story. It's nothing, but it's everything that has changed in a short period of time. The way we see the healthcare, the way we fight for human life, it has huge impact on the economy worldwide. It has huge impact our future plans. It has huge impact on culture. See what's happening with the culture worldwide. I think the theaters are empty. People are going.
I wanted to actually piggyback on what you're saying,
Yes.
and add, you, with your experiences, you're really a truly global person. Do you see the risks for globalization created by the pandemic? Can keeping borders shut for substantially long period of times reverse several globalization trends? Essentially, what I'm getting at, is there a chance that the world will start valuing security more than efficiency and freedoms of people?
Can I just answer your question in a different way? In a different way, that to jump to a conclusion how the world will be after the coronavirus, is a bit premature. I think we have to try to analyze really why this happened. That this is where I was trying to engage you in a discussion that pandemic, the coronavirus, is nothing. It's another virus. But today it has become everything. It has become everything for a simple reason of that the world has changed. The world was changing with or without coronavirus. Coronavirus is not the reason of the change. Coronavirus is one of the consequences of the changed world. That's very important to understand, that coronavirus in this scale is because we are different. And the world was going to change in any case, with coronavirus or without coronavirus. Coronavirus is a reminder, a cold shower, or a message from God that there is something wrong on this planet. And if you are serious, you have to seriously think about, on the level of your family, individually, or in your organization, in your business, or on the level of public offices, or the governments, or intergovernmental relations. Because do we like or not, the world has changed, and now the message is there, and the world will not be the same as we were thinking before. And the reality is that coronavirus is also, if you look from the point of view of a researcher, coronavirus is a test. Is a test for individual, how he behaves. Is a test for a family, even living in the same small flat. The whole family together is a test for the family. Is the test, as one of our friends was saying, how good is your neighbor? I read that, it was a very good notion. And it is a test how friends work together. It's a test of your culture, how much you respect your parents, and how seriously you are looking and taking care of them, or those who are in need. It's a test of humanity. It's a test for culture, because we have lost for a period of time a big portion of our normal culture, be that theaters, cinemas. It's a test for businesses. I mean, they are suffering hugely, these businesses. So the leaders of business community, for each of them, it's a test. It's a test for individually for families to survive, those who are in need. How they are going to survive this. It's a test for governments. Also, it's a test of intergovernmental relations. And if we look at many relations now, before coronavirus, the priorities, well, let's look what's happening in Syria. Before coronavirus, news on television was, the third, the fourth news was about Syria and what was happening in Syria, at least in our region. Now, who speaks about Syria? You put your television on Russian television or CNN, on BBC, or Armenian television, the main news is about coronavirus. Like 800 years ago, the only news was about Jerusalem. Will Jerusalem survive or not in this battle? So that's a test. So we have the test. We have the test results. So if you are a scientist or a politician or a businessman with common sense, you have to look at the experience of these 2, 3, 4 months and start coming to some sort of a conclusion. Short term, because coronavirus has not disappeared yet, and of course long term. How to organize your business, your government, your offices, your individual life, where to invest your money for the future, and what are the priorities. So the test is there. My conclusion is that the conclusion that I had before, the world has changed. And if we want to succeed, we have to change ourselves. Yes.
I would like to add to where you were going with this. Now, when you say it could be short term, it could be long term. It's very interesting because the prognoses are one way or the other. question is how quickly do you think we recover economically, right? There are best case scenarios and worst case scenarios. The question whether it's going to be the recovery, whether it's going to be V-shaped, U-shaped, L-shaped, all sorts of things. One of our board members, Andre Andonian, whom you know very well, senior partner at McKinsey in Japan, kindly updates us on a weekly basis on type of recovery to expect. The recent studies suggest a base case scenario starting with recovery sometime in the fourth quarter of 2020, right? So they say GDP decline is going to be globally around 2.7%. If virus is contained and the growth then could return. The worst case, we're going to expect a long economic winter essentially, where GDP declines 6.5% worldwide, in US about 8%, over 10% in Europe. And sometime the health system will return to pre-crisis level comes sometime in late 2022, 2023, early 20. So that's a long time. What's your take on this? How do you view these shapes, all sorts of economic shapes? We're talking about V, U, or L.
Well, first of all, I think Andre is much better specialist than me. All of this years serving in McKinsey, and this is exactly what he is professional in, making economic models for that. So I think I will follow and listen exactly what Andre has to say. My conclusion is a bit different. It's not about recovery. Definition of recovery is very important. If we're thinking about recovery as the economic indicators like GDP growth and returning back to where we were, then I have a small discomfort with that. If we are going to go back and the only conclusion of this pandemic is that, it happened, it took us back several months or several years, now we have recovered and let's continue doing exactly what we were doing with the nature, with our healthcare, with the way we run our businesses or our economy, then I feel that we are in trouble. So I'm not answering your question, is it the recovery is V-shaped or it's Gaussian or what? Well, it's going up and will go down again. That I leave to Andre and give my best regards to Andre if he is there, and I'm happy to hear and pronounce his name because he's a great guy. But my discomfort is not about, first of all, it's about that we are discussing how to go back to normality. I mean, recovering ourselves, continuing as we were. In many ways, not responsible. I gave this example last time when I was speaking publicly that, yes, when coronavirus entered Armenia and the government started measures and the number of cars dramatically dropped in Yerevan, you could feel the quality of air in Yerevan, both breathing and also seeing so far. So Yerevan immediately became 5 times bigger because you could see it. So I take you back. How on earth we were living in a city where we couldn't see so far and we're breathing unhealthy air, probably eating unhealthy food, investing in an unhealthy economy, and while when the coronavirus started, every and each government in the world started planning or injecting huge amount of money into fighting coronavirus and the process of recovery. So the question is, why on earth we were not giving Nubar Afeyan the same $400 million 5 years ago in order to them to finish this vaccine 2 years ago, so we would be ready for coronavirus? Why on earth these trillions of dollars and euros invested in economies are we going to benefit from that, or this money invested or thrown into the economies is going to basically affect in an unhealthy way the global markets? Can we rely on global markets of the future? My conclusion is, it's the time for us. We have seen the results of the test. They are not healthy. We have seen what's happening in this world. Probably it's the time seriously think where to invest more, because pandemics will come. There will be another virus. It will be named after this or that. And if we will not be ready for that virus in our public organization, the governments will not be ready for that. Academics will not be ready. The businesses are not. Again, it will take us back another 2, 3, 4, 5% of GDP. But it will take thousands of lives or maybe millions of lives. And we will just lose our focus where we are going. So my conclusion of this is not about the shape of recovery. Have we learned the lessons of this pandemic?
Well, let me add to that. Actually, I recently I want to talk about that subject matter. Whether we go back to old routines or is there going to be a shift? Our hugely insightful one of our co-founders, Ruben Bartanian, whom also you call friend, recently gave an interview to the Russian media suggesting that what we know when the year just started is probably gone, and that we need to look for new ways for living and working. Now, you are alluding to that, that things are changing in such ways we need to learn and we can come back to the situation that we've left. What do you think that new normal is? Will there be, when we're back at 100% capacity, if the 100% capacity matches whatever it is that we understand in today's world? What's the world like for you a year from now? If we were hypothetical, but it's like you're scientists, we both looked at predictions, forecasts in the past world. A year from now, 2 years from now, what are the big things that you think are different when it comes to our life?
Fine, I can try to answer that question the way I see it globally, but I can also try to answer it locally as well, where I think the first important steps that we have to do. Globally, my views they have not changed since before the coronavirus. Probably you know that I called our future quantum, in a sense that it's not classical. The power of individual has risen. Many global risks, including the pandemics, they have absolutely quantum behavior. They are not classical. And because of many reasons, first of all, the biggest reason is the connectivity. We are much more, connectivity is everything. We have to realize that connectivity is the fundamental idea or value both in nature and our human life. Connectivity, this universe it's not structured from only individual elementary particles.
Right.
There are elementary particles, they come together, they create an atom. Then atoms come together in cooperation or connection or through specific connectivities. They create molecules. The molecules they create specific biological objects and so on and so forth. The same is happening with us. We are interconnected, and connectivity is one of the most important issues in this new world. And now we are connected, and our lives is divided between sort of already 50% material connectivity. The other 50% is virtual. In fact, coronavirus, that virus is also a dimension of our connectivity. We hug each other, we kiss each other, we shake hands together, we talk to each other, we exchange ideas, views, emotions, but we also exchange bacteria and viruses. So connectivity matters. And in this world, the size, the amount, and the velocity or the acceleration of interconnection or connectivity has risen so much that this is a completely new world. Well, I can take you to a voyage worldwide, how the world would look like in 5 or 10 years, or 20 years' time. It will be absolutely simple. We'll start not being afraid of artificial intelligence. We'll start using it. And with the help of artificial intelligence, we'll be identifying viruses much quicker, finding solutions much quicker. Our medical instruments will be much more efficient, even the ones that we have. The same MRI will be much more effective because the artificial intelligence mathematics will help us to basically not only scan in an hour the full human body, but also analyze in a couple of minutes and find very, very micro problems, be that a cancer or any other disease. It will change completely our industries, because the most effective industries will not be the ones that will be based on cheap workforce. I mean, we will not be speaking about huge factories that will be producing machinery or cars, because machines and cars will be produced by robots. What will have the value is the design, idea, the intelligence put in the product, and so on. So our life will completely change. It will change also not only industrially, but it will change also the way we exercise basic values, the way we exercise human relations, the way we exercise exchange of information. The media is already different than it was years ago, and it will change dramatically in the next 5 or 10 years. The way we exercise politics will be different. There will be more entertainment, I mean, using new technology and so on, and it will be targeting individually. Because I have already told this to students here. So what is, at the end of the day, to know exactly everything about 10 billion people? Nothing, mathematically. Right. And we have all the necessary tools which are already hanging with us, be that our telephone, our smart watch, that will tomorrow not only give information about the worldwide, answer any question, who was the mother of, what was the name of the mother of Bodwin IV, and your watch will answer, you don't have to go in the book, the name of that queen was Agnes. So there will be everything here, and that everything will also measure your how many steps you are doing, are you healthy, is your heart beating well, what's your temperature, and that all will be gathered worldwide in specific tanks of information. And those who will have access to that information will help the world, or sometimes they will not help the world. So the world will be dramatically different. And so that is why I'm preaching that we have to be serious. With or without coronavirus, the world is already moving with a huge speed towards a change. So short term, you ask the question?
I said short term, within a year.
Short term, I will not try to predict what will happen to the world. I would like more to think that what is that we in Armenia have, for example, or in a country like Armenia, have to start thinking of what to do. And this is just a friendly advice or an idea that could be discussed by many, including the government or the opposition or any analytical group or think tank. They are simple ideas, but they are necessities. A country like Armenia, before, especially after the coronavirus, for example, will need a task force that will look at promoting investment into Armenia. After the coronavirus, people will start moving after the standstill. So they will start looking around to find something new or interesting. Because the old ideas sort of will be washed by the coronavirus. And for a small country like Armenia, it's very important that we communicate with the world and tell who we are and why they should invest in a country like Armenia. And that's why I call it Quick Investment Task Force. And that investment task force should be doing a job twofold. So it's an institution that will, classical investment promotion agency. For the moment, we don't have one. We are relying on our embassies or our compatriots, our diaspora, but we need professional organization that will go around the world after the coronavirus, after the flood, and start promoting Armenia. But it should do the other job as well. It should take Armenian startups, those companies that are producing goods in Armenia, help them to export their goods abroad. Because in many ways, it's a new start.
Right.
So someone or an organization or a country that is working hard and spending a lot of energy on promotion of their...
In what industries though, Mr. President? So let's say there is this investment entity that you're speaking about, it's organized. I'm thinking, given what's happening in the world, I'm thinking, things like biomedicine, biotechnology are going to be top areas for us to look, agriculture, agtech, edtech. What are you thinking?
I'll agree and I'll go further what you were saying. I think another important step that what we have to do, we have to work hard today, but specifically after coronavirus, we have to work very hard on strengthening the e-governance, both inside the government, in the public, and individual companies. For a simple reason, and this is not only for Armenia, this is worldwide. Because those countries that have been successfully pushing and applying and introducing e-governance seriously, they have benefited. They were much more resilient during the coronavirus. As an example, Singapore. Singapore, I think before coronavirus, if I'm not mistaken, around 20,000 people were working sort of from home. And this is 1/7 of their government task force. So that means when coronavirus comes, people are already ready for the future risks, like a coronavirus or something else. So it's not strange for them to do their job from home, not in the office that they come every day. So e-governance is very, very important for the future. So for a country like Armenia, I would think that we have to put an effort, because e-governance is not only about just creating the environment, the tools and everything, but it's also promoting IT technology in your country. Because you cannot have e-governance, which is not only the IT technology, it's a culture, and it's also managerial skills in order to succeed what you want. So by promoting e-governance, you are promoting also IT technology, and the best or creme de la creme of the IT technology is the artificial intelligence. So parallel to e-governance, I will put a lot of effort to develop in Armenia the top of the IT technology, including mathematical modeling of artificial. I'm speaking about this already a year, and we have some success. And just immediately after coronavirus, I'm going to go back with my presidential initiative to support the project Atom that you know, which is advanced tomorrow, and to bring multinational big companies to Armenia in the special labs that are focusing on artificial intelligence, because that's the basis and basic tool for the future, be that in agriculture, food production, intergovernmental relations, fighting coronavirus, supporting biotechnology and healthcare. So this is something that I will pay a huge, and since we were lucky for the last 1.5 years, I was lucky that I created a bit less than 20 big multinationals agreeing that we can work together in Armenia. I'm happy to start working now when the waters of coronavirus will descend. The other sector that you mentioned, and it's very important, is food security. Is not food safety. Food safety is very important as a discipline, because even if, I think in a country like Armenia or any country, food safety should be taken to another level. Because whenever you taste the food, be that at home or in a restaurant or a cafe, you have to be sure that whatever you are getting is safe, bacterially, from the point of view of viruses. And this goes hand to hand with the new world, because coronavirus has told us that the new interesting sectors of food distribution are the ones that are using the IT and technology, and tomorrow it will use just carrying the food to the home. So after coronavirus, of course, when the doors are, everybody will rush to a restaurant. After a week, we have to come back. Be careful in the restaurant. So I think it's very important that we come back and start thinking that in the future, you can eat and get the food supplied to you as also your dresses or whatever outfit and many features without going to the most attractive but also dangerous places, which are not the medieval markets, but our 21st century market, which is the shopping mall. So the whole concept of shopping mall will start changing, and will change. If we don't change, we will go back to we'll go forward to our history. We will not go back to the future, but we'll go forward to the history. Then I think we will be in a danger, because that shopping malls without new regulation, new behavior, new culture will be always a dangerous place. That's a lesson that we have learned. But food security is something very, very important for a country like Armenia, because we are not producing the whole spectrum of food, and solving a food security is not the classical old 20th century solution when you create big warehouses and keep their potatoes or packed food or something. No. The food security is diversifying your agriculture. And in Armenia, unfortunately, I can tell you that we have a lot of land which is not properly used yet. It's not only in Armenia, it's in many countries, but in Armenia. Yeah. Half of the population of our country, more or less, around half, lives in the city of Yerevan. Well, we can see it. And what is that? We have to change our mindset. Isn't it better that we live outside Yerevan? Isn't it better that we go closer to the land? So food security, agriculture is another. And then you said about biotechnology, well, science.
Well, I actually, Mr. President, I wanted to segue into science, because, given your background, but also we have, looking at some of the questions that are coming from our audience, and science is all over the place. It seems like the importance of science is growing up. But you said science, and then you were going to biotechnology. They're extremely important yet extremely expensive fields. For most people, and not until this pandemic, conversations about these fields were at the fringe of any interaction, as you would agree, right? But now it's at the center stage. And you mentioned our, Nubar Afeyan, who's also one of the founders of FAST, but also the chairman of Moderna, one of the leading biotechnology companies that is developing experimental vaccines against the coronavirus. Now, its technology is pretty nifty, right? It synthesizes messenger RNA or mRNA to essentially prompt the human body to make its own medicine. Now, 3 months ago, if any of us was to have a conversation about this would have been considered a fantasy, a discussion only people in white robes in sealed labs should be speaking about. But now we're eagerly waiting to hear more news about solutions of this nature. And well, fortunately for us, for you and I, but I think for the entire Armenian nation, we happen to have one of our own on the frontiers of the scientific discovery. And you mentioned that the American government has given nearly $500 million to Moderna. This eagerness of governments to work with the private sector, as was the case with the US government and Moderna, displays, at least in the near terms, a renewed appreciation for science. Do you feel that science is really picking up steam again?
Well, I'm not feeling that the science is picking up yet today, when the science is silent. It's more science is silent rather than in many places, because I have even the research centers of the Academy of Sciences of universities in Armenia, they are not working. But definitely science is not going to be only the places where we'll find solutions, but it's also the places that will create huge number of jobs. 483 million that Mr. Afeyan has got is not going to use for his personal use. He's going to create a lot of jobs there in order not only for research but also the production. And we mentioned another professor, Mr. Babikian, Probably you don't know that his organization is that is one of the biggest in the Far East animal food production companies that he is running the research part. They have a lab in Yerevan. And they are producing, they have a lab in Yerevan, and they have several researchers working there, and in fact they are producing in Yerevan that subsidy that could be used as a subsidy of fighting coronavirus for animals. So that gives you an example. Yes, indeed, science is going to be one of the most exciting and one of the most interesting areas to invest and to work with. First of all, science is going to be connected very, very closely. It's going to work very closely with technology. I think the boundaries between technology and science are not going to be identified clearly in the future. Secondly, science is the one that will take everybody by hand to the future, show the path where to go. Thirdly, we are lucky that we have basis of that science, and I think immediately after coronavirus, maybe before that, for the future, we have to use the advantages that we have. So what are the advantages? You take the Academy of Sciences of Armenia. People criticize about that it's an old-style institution, or there are new labs and so on, which is maybe in many ways true as well. But what is important is the connectivity. Again, I take you to the word connectivity. Less than 70 years, because our Armenian Academy of Sciences was founded early 50s. Armenian Academy of Sciences, early 40s and then in 50s, had created, for example, connections with other scientific centers. But it's not only academia, it's the universities, it's individuals. For the moment, we look in what's happening in Russia. Armenians, like professors that we mentioned today, they are sitting in many research centers in Russia. And we have the connectivity. We should utilize whatever we have. For years we had very close relations, for example, with Rosatom. We were part of the Soviet Union. And Armenian nuclear power plant is a Soviet product that is serving so many years. So why on earth we don't go into much more closer cooperation and research into the science of nuclear with the people that we know for many years? Simple.
Why do you think?
Because we were still living physically and virtually in the 21st century, but thinking with the categories of the 20th. Slow and so on. This should a boost to us to tomorrow pick up a telephone and send some of our scientists to the centers worldwide, including the ones that we were a part of before, like to Russia, to Dubna. There are so many Armenian academics working in Dubna, and it doesn't matter are they Armenians or not. The relations, connectivity, the language, the culture is still there. Why don't we do something with Nubar Afeyan, with Professor Babikian, with Professor Kamalov and Professor Lord Darzi, who is running a huge research center in UK, Imperial College. Of course, each of them as an Armenian, they are doing their duty. They have an Armenian PhD student, they support this, they do that. We as a nation, as a state, we have to take the lead of engaging everybody together and showing the power of being Armenian, which is, again, a simple slogan, small state, but a global nation. These are not just beautiful words. This is a formula, but that formula should be used. If you don't use this formula, it becomes a nice toast during the birthday party.
Right.
Okay?
Mr. President, you would agree that we have some young, talented scientists. I know you mentioned that universities and labs are not functioning. Actually, many of them are functioning currently in very limited capacity, as much as the world allows them to do so. We actually launched several programs ourselves where we're collaborating with those scientists in Germany, in the United States, in France, and we actually, you mentioned Nubar Afeyan, we sent young scientists from here to go to Boston for 3 months, actually, for them to get better prepared and educated. But I want to echo what you're saying. I think there needs to be a lot more programs and focus to put on these young scientists, for them to mix with global brain power, essentially, for them to start producing value for Armenia, especially in the renewed focus on science and scientific discovery. It's like a little segue. If I'm not mistaken, you were one of the original authors of Tetris, right? The game.
Okay.
Right? Am I right or am I not?
Well, but it's a Tetris group of games. Tetris on its own as one game, because there are several Tetrises. There is Tetris, there is three-dimensional Tetris, there is Wordtris, that I'm one of the authors of this. There's a Tetris group of games. Official Tetris as a Tetris, all of them were created in the Computer Center of the Academy of Sciences of Soviet Union in Moscow by different people, but Tetris itself was announced years ago that it's created by Mr. Alexei Pazhitnov, that left Soviet Union and ended up in America and got a job in Microsoft, if I am not mistaken. But yes, Tetris group of games, yes. And?
The reason I was mentioning is, it's like it was part of, a group of people coming together and co-authoring something that, it was infectious. That's probably the only game I've ever played in my life. That tells you, how boring my life has been throughout. I haven't played too much of a video game or anything of that nature. And that was easy, flat things, shapes to put together. But then, I want to say, creating opportunities on our side, Mr. President, collectively enabling our young scientists to connect with the global scientific community. We just launched a grant, actually one for biotechnology, another one for AI, and then advanced materials, that we will have top-notch scientists with Armenian background from abroad to work with PIs here, or for them to serve as a principal investigator, put together postdocs to work. So we're launching 3 of those initiatives. We just launched actually 3 of those initiatives last month. And I think we need to do a lot more, given what the actual presence of, how science is asking us to go to it for us to live in peace. Because what's happening with coronavirus, we ourselves as human, it shows the simplicity of a human being. You're speaking of connectivity of people, and it's very right. It's actually capitalizing on a weakness of a human, that we need to interact with one another. If we were not social, the coronavirus would not have any chance of survival. It's the fact that we're social, that we're connected, that we're doing this, to your point, that we're actually in this situation, in this condition. It's very bizarre. And that very nature, there is a question from audience, it's kind of an interesting one. Will this crisis bring to isolation of countries? Because, it's like, the weakness of humanity is our social interaction, is our connection. Now, will Europeans start building borders? Americans are already building borders, Being an American myself, knowing what the President of the United States is talking about all the time, about building borders between Mexico and the United States. So there may be a kind of all new, renewed thing. Let us isolate each other. Let us insulate. A small country like Armenia, we cannot afford that.
Well, that's why I think I will reflect on what you were saying. That I think you raised a couple of questions. Let me try to answer each of them. Now, you spoke about Tetris and Wordtris and Tetris group of games. The beauty of both Tetris, but especially Wordtris and Tetris group of them, they were educational games. I think it's interesting that if you go back 30, 40, 50 years ago, the first games that when they appeared, some of them were simple and fun, like Pokemon or Super Mario, but they were training some skills. The others, like Tetris and Wordtris, especially Wordtris, they were educational games. Educational because Wordtris teaches also languages and so on. I'm not going to speak about these games. I'm going to speak that in the future, for those who are going to invest money, they should look very carefully, dear friends, There are many types of games. There are video games, there are a lot of shooting games, action games. But and periodically, the time of educational or smart games are coming. There was a game that was a physical called Rubik's Cube. It looks like a game, but it's a very smart thing. Then it came to something like Tetris or Wordtris, which is an educational game. And now in the future, educational games will matter, because the parents will be using the video, the computer, in order to not only to give them the time that the child is shooting on television for 1 hour and getting the skill of being quick and the quick decision maker, but also education. With the e-education getting more and more ground worldwide, including in Armenia, educational games will become very, very important. That's the first, what you were saying. I didn't say that our academic institutions and universities are, I was saying that there are people that are complaining about the quality of research and so on. But a small country like Armenia, when it was a part of Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union had recognized the talent in this country and was financing, we were a part of a bigger academia, which was the academia of more than 300 million people, with a wealthy country that were putting a lot of money into science for this or that reason. Now we have to find a new formula and encourage our young people to go into academia. This encouragement can have different forms, and it will go hand to hand also with business and technology. Because there is no way a small country like Armenia, that has probably around 20,000 IT specialists, if I'm mistaken, plus or minus, can compete with others, including those who we don't think as giants of technology. But countries like, I like this example of Belarus, because only in one company, which has the full tax support of the government, called Park Vysokих Technology, there are 50,000 people working, more than 2 billion turnover, and the government has invested zero, except giving the tax incentives. I'm happy that the government and the Ministry of Technology in Armenia is supporting the startups now, which is around, if you are a startup up to 30 people, you get good tax support for the government, but that's, I personally think, as a scientist, someone that knows the business, and also a bit of government, that this is not enough. We have to seriously identify the priorities of development. That could be, let's say, in food security, that could be in IT technology, that could be in biotechnology, very narrow, but the ones that are going to be the locomotives of the future, not only for Armenia, but for the world, and invest there by investing by giving the support, connectivity, but also tax incentives. Very narrow. And in a short period of time, of a couple of years, we'll see blossoming of technology, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, food security, and we will see also job creation in the country if we decide to invest that way. So, and then we'll see also scientific connections with other centers, and our universities, both academics and they will be much more engaged in what's happening. And the third point that you raised is about helping others. We've been helping each other since many, many years. Unfortunately, 100 years ago, we were helping each other because of the genocide of Armenians. And we're helping those who were in need, those who lost their parents or their relatives, or lost their families, their homeland, so they were in need. So we know how to do helping each other through charities that are very famous worldwide. And it continues, different organizations, different individuals through their charities, starting from, let's say, HGBU, the foundations that are connected to your founders, or even when I created, you mentioned the Eurasia Center at Cambridge University. Unfortunately, years ago, we closed it. We managed through several charitable organizations, including Vacha and Tamar Manoukian Foundation, our family and others, we supported education for more than 250 people. Not only at Cambridge University, but in Europe, in Harvard and elsewhere. But as a president of Armenia now, when I look at it, I would desire, I will hope, and I will dream to have much more integrated effort. I think individually we are ready. Individually we do a lot. You ask the Mr. X, Mr. Y, Y, Mr. Z, everybody is doing something. And I will not start giving names because then I will forget the others, hundreds and thousands of them. But it's very, very important that we start thinking about doing things together. Not as a slogan, not as a good thing, not as a good idea, but really starting acting as one and coming together, both in science, both in business, because this is the trivial idea that everybody talks, everybody knows, but the execution is still not there. We have to start after coronavirus, as many other nations have to do the same. And not only nations, but also international organizations have to do the same. And I'll come back to your question there. We as Armenians have to rethink how we are interconnected and put our efforts together. As an idea of that, on the 24th of April, I came with an idea which I had for many years, even invested some time to think about it. Why on earth, near the monument of the genocide, we have not created the Armenian Park of the memory, both making our city much more healthier and uniting the whole nation, be that in diaspora, in Armenia, in Artsakh, into one simple effort. But if you are running a big business and you have been working in big business, you do sometimes taking your stuff, going outside, doing something together in the nature, or putting a plant, or doing some valuable social work. Why? In order to create this feeling of that you are a team. So let's do 1, 2, 3 projects which are national projects. They are simple, but they have a philosophy and they have something that will bring people together, like this high park, the park of all Armenians, the park of memory, but the park also of the future, because being connected in the future is another very important tool. And even institutions like organizations that European Union, they have to somehow rediscover them, because they are good in having joint parliament, organization, this policy, that energy policy, this policy. But what about fighting the coronavirus together? We have seen scenes when the borders between some European Union member countries were closed. And it's also connectivity for us as a state, to be connected as a state, not only as nation, connected to each other, but connectivity for a country like Armenia, not only with our strategic partners, the big states or big unions, but also I think we should be connected with others. And a year ago I came with an idea of a club of small but successful countries. I would love to call Armenia as a small but potentially country that can be very, very successful. Why we cannot create more connection with smaller countries worldwide and have exchange of experiences, starting from Rwanda up to in the Far East. We have to look at new ways of pushing our case forward.
I'll tell you, you said Rwanda, the Minister of ICT of Rwanda is actually plugged in. She's Polish, she's online, she's listening to this discussion, so she'll probably appreciate and take this to President Kagame at some point.
Well, I know President very well. Please take my best regards to President.
I absolutely will. Mr. President, I wanted to echo on collaborations on large scale. You and I recently, we spoke about this very innovative and forward-looking SciTech initiative called Advanced Tomorrow, ATO. And we have plans here at the Foundation for Creation of Science and Deep Tech Focused Innovation District and Adaptive Innovation Campus, for which we discussed some sort of a collaboration. I'm looking forward really for us to pick up those conversations that we had right when everything comes down, the waters come down. Look, I want to ask last few questions. This is not a question actually. I You're such an inspiration, Mr. President, really, and I want the world, but I want our young people, the world also to hear, how does one make a journey from a theoretical physicist to a successful entrepreneur and eventually to the president of the state? What is your life philosophy?
Are you serious?
I am very serious.
Yeah, it's a very complex question. Rely on God, listen to your parents, and be honest to yourself. Never cheat yourself.
Look, we planned this to have for an hour. We're an hour and 8 minutes. I don't want to take your time, Mr. President. What I want to say is, I look forward to hosting you in our campus. We discussed for you to have to come and see what we're doing here. Thank you for being such an inspiration, being really a model, a global citizen. Always an honor to be in your company. It's a privilege to have a conversation with you all the time. I also want to thank our associates at FAST and Future Studio platform for hosting another great program. Mr. President, you're one of those amazing gifts to humanity, but also we're fortunate to have you here as an Armenian. I'm also very fortunate to share your first name, and the country is very fortunate to share. I don't know whether we're sharing their first name, the country's first name, or the country's sharing our first name. It's really a privilege to be speaking with you, to be in your presence. I look forward to continuing this conversation. And to our audience from all over the world, thank you so much for plugging in and spending this hour, 10 minutes with us to hear our wonderful president speak about what's going on in the world, transformations, in economics, in humanity, in people, Armenia, nation. Mr. President, your last word.
Well, my last word is thank you very much. You were very kind, too kind, speaking about me. And as I said at the beginning, the most important thing in our lives are going to happen in the future. So let's work together. And I'm not going to wait until this pandemic is going to be ending, or the whole process, because there are difficulties in our lives that we carry on. So pandemic is a huge difficulty. It's a tragic difficulty because people are losing their lives. Again, let's be very serious the way we handle this pandemic, but let's work very hard daily, starting from today or yesterday, because I believe in future, and I believe people both in age or young, especially those who are young not only by spirit, but also by their age, the future is theirs, and the future can be wonderful if we handle it right, and if we learn the lessons of life, the lessons that are given to us also by nature and God. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President. I look forward to hosting you here sometime this month or next. And dear audience, thank you very much. We wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, smile, become an entrepreneur, innovator, whatever it is in your life you want to do, scientist, and connect with us, follow us, see what we're doing in life. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.